Chapter 1. The Encounter in the Storm. David is one of the most successful figures in the real estate industry. Every project he invests in becomes a symbol, with modern skyscrapers rising like mountains in the heart of the city, testaments to his talent and keen instincts. Major contracts and tense negotiations are all indispensable parts of his work. David has built a vast financial empire, the kind of career thousands dream of, complete with luxurious mansions and valuable real estate developments. However, beneath this glamorous facade, David constantly feels a void that cannot be filled. Despite possessing everything society deems a success, he feels trapped in a never-ending vortex. Tense meetings, superficial social relationships, and pressure from family and partners weigh heavily on his shoulders. Each day, David increasingly feels like a tireless machine, only capable of chasing distant goals without truly understanding what he is genuinely seeking. Everything seems like a power game, where he must always prove himself, but the more he does, the more distant he feels from himself. It is as though he has lost faith in life. The joys and passions he once had now seem faded. David no longer feels excitement about work, nor does he find comfort in parties or social gatherings. The world around him keeps moving forward, yet he feels like an outsider, standing on the sidelines and watching everything unfold without being able to participate. After an important family meeting about investment strategies, David became utterly exhausted. The debate lasted for hours with his father, where each stubbornly defended their own viewpoints. His father wanted to continue expanding into more land investments, while David preferred shifting toward environmentally friendly projects. The argument led nowhere, and the tension reached a peak. David realized he could no longer continue like this. He felt cornered into a path he never wanted to follow. Familial affection had long faded, and their exchanges now resembled power struggles without any clear objective. All of it made him feel there was no place to rely on, no one truly willing to listen and understand. In the end, David decided to leave it all behind, not to run away, but to rediscover himself. He drove his black sports car out of the city, heading toward the countryside. He didn't know exactly where he would go, but a compelling urge within told him to depart, searching for a quiet place to reflect on his life. He simply wanted to escape all the clamor and seek the peace he had long neglected. Skyscrapers, real estate projects, and incessant phone calls were no longer what he craved. As David drove along the deserted road, the sky suddenly darkened. A fierce storm arrived quickly, torrential rain and strong winds making it impossible for him to see ahead. Powerful gusts caused his car to lose control, veering into a roadside ditch and flipping over. Driving in the storm, despite his best efforts, he ultimately couldn't avoid the accident. Everything around him turned chaotic. Shattering glass and pouring rain drowned out any other sounds aside from the loud crash of the car. David was trapped inside the vehicle, unable to free himself. He felt the cold sting from his injuries, and a sense of loneliness grew more pronounced. The storm's increasing violence made him feel abandoned in a merciless world, unnoticed by anyone. Amid David's struggle against the rain and his pain, an old small car appeared. The driver was Lily, a young woman with flowing hair and determined eyes. Seeing the overturned car, she did not hesitate to stop. Ignoring the danger, Lily ran over to help, trying to get David out of the overturned vehicle. Lily was not someone trained to save people in such situations, but she possessed extraordinary resolve and courage. She refused to leave David trapped inside the car during the storm, promptly calling a small tow truck and bringing him back to her ranch. Lily's horse ranch was on the outskirts, far from the city's conveniences. This was where she grew up with her parents, but they had since passed away in a traffic accident, leaving Lily alone to manage everything. Her ranch was beset by financial difficulties. She had borrowed from the bank to keep the ranch running, but those debts had become a nearly unbearable burden. Nonetheless, this ranch was all she had left, the only place keeping the memories of her parents alive, the last link to her past. Despite the hardships, Lily could not allow it to go bankrupt. If she lost the ranch, she would lose what remained of her family as well. When David came to, he realized he had been saved and taken to a simple horse ranch, a place of peaceful life but also full of challenges. Although unaware of his whereabouts, Lily's help brought him a strange warmth in the chilling circumstances. Hello everyone, welcome to today's story. Let us know which city you come from, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on more meaningful stories. Part 2. The process of working and building a relationship. After recovering, David felt he had survived and been saved from a situation he could never have imagined. He felt a deep sense of gratitude toward Lily, who had rescued him from the fierce storm and taken him to her ranch. But upon regaining consciousness and sensing Lily's predicament, David found he could not simply stop at that. He wanted to do something to repay her for saving his life. "You saved me, so the least I can do is help in some way," David said, sitting on a modest chair in the ranch's simple living room, his gaze sincere. Lily shook her head, smiling gently. "I don't need anything. I didn't save you for any reason other than that you needed help. I don't want you to feel obliged." David looked into Lily's eyes and sensed her resolute spirit. He couldn't force her to accept his help, but the urge to do something for her lingered in his mind. He knew Lily was shouldering a heavy burden, and although she said she didn't need help, David couldn't let her fight everything on her own. One day, as he was outside looking around the ranch, he noticed a job announcement posted on the barn wall. "Looking for a horse handler, contact Lily," read the simple yet clear lines. An idea suddenly formed in David's mind. He realized he could help her without having to reveal his true identity. While he could do any job to repay her, David decided to remain at the ranch and work alongside Lily. He felt this was a chance to rediscover the peace he had lost long ago. That evening, after a light dinner, David spoke to Lily. "I saw you need someone to look after the horses. If you're willing, I'd like to help. I don't know much about this work, but I want to try. I need a new direction for my life." Lily looked at him for a moment, hesitated, then nodded. "If you want to, I'll hire you, but you'll have to work hard." She saw no reason to refuse his help, no matter who David was. This ranch badly needed a hand, and David, after all, seemed like someone who would keep his word. So David began caring for horses at Lily's ranch. Although he was a real estate tycoon accustomed to a life of luxury, this work was entirely new to him. Yet from his very first days on the ranch, he sensed a profound difference from the lavish life he was used to. The horses, the expansive fields, and the fresh air gave him a relaxation and ease he hadn't felt in countless years amid skyscrapers or tense meetings. Lily was the one who taught him everything, from how to care for the horses to the basic techniques of running a ranch. She was not only a mentor, but also a source of inspiration, gradually changing the way David looked at life. Though the work was fairly strenuous and sometimes left him feeling exhausted, the tranquility of this place made David feel as though he was returning to his true self. As the days passed, the work at the ranch became an inseparable part of his daily routine. While David gradually adapted to caring for horses, Lily also began opening up to him. She started sharing her past, her family, and the hardships she'd faced since her parents died in a traffic accident. She talked about the ranch, the large debts she had to bear, and why she couldn't abandon it, even when things were getting very tough. "I can't leave this ranch. This is the only place I have left, the only place that helps me feel close to my family. If I lose this ranch, I won't have anything left," Lily said one afternoon, as the two of them cared for the horses under the gentle sunlight. David looked into Lily's eyes, sensing her determination and the love she had for the ranch. He couldn't help but admire her resilience. Though her life was full of trials, Lily had never given up hope. It was precisely these qualities that made David feel ever closer to Lily, and his feelings for her grew deeper with each passing day. One afternoon, as they worked under the sun, David suddenly asked Lily, "Have you ever thought about leaving all this behind?" Lily paused, looking at the horses grazing nearby, and answered in a calm yet firmly resolved tone, "No, I can't. This ranch is everything to me. If I gave up, I'd lose what remains of my family. I can't do that." David didn't know what to say. He only looked at Lily, feeling the strength in her gaze. He understood more than ever why she couldn't leave. This was the only place she had left, and despite all the hardships, she was determined to protect it. The closeness between them became more evident day by day. Although they came from two entirely different worlds, David and Lily gradually realized that in moments of difficulty, they could find solace and support in one another. Their feelings grew naturally, unhurried, forming a deep bond as they worked together day after day. David's emotions for Lily weren't just about gratitude anymore. Bit by bit, they evolved into a love he had never before experienced. Part 3. The Climax and the Unveiled Secret. After many months of working and living together at the ranch, the feelings between David and Lily gradually grew, becoming deeper than ever. They were no longer just colleagues handling the horses. They had become close like dear friends, sharing both joys and sorrows. The sincerity and efforts David poured into caring for the horses with Lily showed her he wasn't merely a drifter seeking temporary shelter. Lily began to trust him with a great deal of faith, as if he were one of the pillars who could help her overcome the myriad financial difficulties closing in. Yet one fateful afternoon changed everything. That day, the late afternoon sunlight cast a golden glow across the meadow, where the horses were leisurely grazing after a tiring day of work. Lily was tidying up the stable and preparing water for the horses when she accidentally heard David's voice coming from somewhere farther away, at the barn where he usually kept his personal items. His tone was low and somewhat more tense than usual. Initially, Lily paid it no mind, as she always respected his privacy, but then a particular name in his conversation made her freeze. Evergreen Properties must reassess the upcoming quarter's project. I don't want to repeat the mistakes that caused partner companies to collapse in the past. Those were the vague words Lily caught, and Evergreen Properties was the name of a large real estate conglomerate often associated with the debts linked to her ranch. She paused her work, moved closer to listen more carefully. The person talking with David over the phone was likely a partner or a close friend, as his voice was calm yet slightly pressured. She heard the company name once more, and her heart began pounding harder. Evergreen Properties, the largest real estate company she had ever heard of, and the family behind it was rumored to be indirectly responsible for bankrupting many local businesses, including those that once supplied feed-in services for her parents' horse ranch. "Are you talking about that real estate company?" Lily spoke up as David had just hung up, her voice trembling. Her eyes were filled with shock and confusion. The late afternoon breeze made the surroundings eerily silent, which startled David as he turned around. He looked at Lily, clearly surprised. He hadn't expected her to be close enough to hear his conversation. "Lily, you heard everything?" he faltered, a hint of unease flashing across his eyes. Part of him realized he had lost a major secret, the one he had been keeping all this time about his identity and his leadership over a colossal real estate corporation. Lily slumped slightly, as though she had taken a strong blow to the chest. She looked up at him, a flurry of emotions swirling in her gaze. For so many days she had trusted and cherished him. She had believed he was just an ordinary man she met during the storm, a dependable companion who was willing to work hard to help her ranch. But now that image collapsed like a building, stripped of its foundations. "Why, does it have to be Evergreen?" she asked, her voice catching. "Could it be you're the one behind that company? The one that indirectly ruined my family's partners?" David stayed silent, his eyes revealing confusion and fear. In that instant, he realized all his attempts at secrecy no longer mattered. He had never wanted Lily to see him through the lens of a real estate tycoon, nor to face the truth that his family's policies and business activities had profoundly affected many other companies. But now everything was laid bare before Lily like a wound that refused to heal. Lily felt her heart constrict. She took a few steps back, her eyes never leaving him. "You not only hid your identity from me, but you're also the one who indirectly caused me to deal with debt and nearly go bankrupt," she said, her voice breaking with hurt and anger. "Do you know that all those companies Evergreen took over, or forced to the brink, used to be strategic partners, providing essential services and resources for my ranch? It's precisely what pushed this ranch into a pile of debt." David couldn't speak. He fully sensed Lily's pain. He understood that his family, backed by massive financial power, had invested in countless projects. Some flourished spectacularly, while others led to the downfall of smaller enterprises. Those figures in reports, restructuring, or transfer rumors he heard daily, turned out to have a destructive power beyond measure for this girl he cared for. I, I didn't mean, he stammered, lowering his gaze. I didn't want you to see me through wealth or my family. I only wanted you to see me as an ordinary person, someone trying to find himself again. I never thought we'd be bound by such painful connections. Lily, though furious, also recalled memories of all the times David had been by her side, helping her take care of the horses, struggling late into the evenings to figure out finances for feed and vaccines. She knew David wasn't a swindler who came here to amuse himself. He truly labored, truly cared for the ranch, and shared with her his most fragile moments regarding the pressures he endured. She looked at him, wanting to rail against him for the suffering she had borne, wanting to hold him accountable for everything, but also aware he alone couldn't rectify his family's complicated and ruthless past. What were you even thinking, not telling me? Were you afraid of what I'd think? She asked, her voice growing steadier, yet still tinged with reproach. Do you know I have to budget every single penny every day to feed the horses and keep this ranch alive? And if I'd known you were a millionaire, do you think I would have forced you to shoulder all my debts? David took a step forward, wanting to touch her hand, but she pulled away. He exhaled, striving to remain calm. I know you're independent. You don't want pity or anyone controlling your life. I was afraid if you knew who I was, you'd leave me, or think everything I did was just about money. I didn't know how deeply my family's past actions could harm you. At that moment, they looked each other in the eye, silent in a bitter confrontation. Lily saw remorse in David's eyes, while David saw painful disappointment in Lily's. Two people who, just the day before, had seemed so united among the calm of the fields and stables, now stood only a few steps apart, yet felt a world away. Lily felt she needed to face this truth. She spoke slowly. I know you didn't do it on purpose, but that doesn't erase the fact that your family's projects drove many partner businesses of this ranch to collapse. I can't just accept that it's unrelated to you. David lowered his head, his voice filled with regret. I just wanted to escape my family's world, escape the pressures, competitions, and the shadow of my parents. When I came here, I found the peace I never had in you. I didn't want to ruin it. I didn't want to hurt you. But now that everything's out in the open, how can I make it right? Lily didn't reply immediately. She sensed sincerity in his words, but the hurt in her heart couldn't vanish overnight. She decided not to flee or hide, but to confront David and seek a solution. First, she needed to ensure her ranch wouldn't be buried under debt. Second, David had to prove he wasn't just a wealthy heir trying to make amends for unintentionally causing her losses. Their conversation ended in a heavy atmosphere. Lily returned to her room, her mind tangled, while David stood in silence at the barn, gazing at the evening sky gradually darkening. He realized tomorrow would no longer be as peaceful as before, yet he also understood that, for true happiness, one sometimes must be brave enough to walk through trials and face the past. In each of them, another great storm had begun. Lily felt she'd lost her faith in David after what she'd just discovered, while David knew he had to find a way to deal with his family's repercussions and ease Lily's pain. Their love was no longer gentle. It had become fragile and required further proof. The shadows of secrets and wounds loomed over the ranch, turning it into a new battleground where emotions and forgiveness fought to survive. What do you think of the story? Please leave a comment below. Part 4. Forgiveness and Making Amends. After the tense days burdened by misunderstanding and the pain of discovering David's true identity, the atmosphere at Lily's horse ranch gradually returned to a calm state. Although Lily still felt hurt, she could not deny the sincere efforts David made for her and the ranch. He spoke little, only quietly working to find ways to help improve the ranch's finances, and most importantly, he never asked for any gratitude or repayment from Lily. From early morning before sunrise, David would wake up with Lily to feed the horses, clean the stable, and even learn how to check the horses' health to ensure they were all well cared for. Though this labor was far more exhausting than the lavish life he once knew, each moment of manual work felt invaluable to him. It was his chance to display genuine goodwill, improve his heart, as well as a means to regain the sense of life he had lost. David spent time studying the ranch's bookkeeping, learning about its debts and interest rates. He carefully offered Lily suggestions, from optimizing the cost of feed for the horses to planning finances so she could gradually pay off the debts. He presented all of it slowly, respecting Lily's decisions, and more importantly, concealing the fact that he was discreetly putting some of his own money into certain channels to lighten her debt burden. Whenever Lily hinted at surprise over how a debt was suddenly extended or interest partly reduced, David would quietly smile or shrug, suggesting it might be luck or maybe someone was helping behind the scenes. He believed that if Lily knew he was the one behind these forms of support, she would feel indebted to him. And he didn't want her to see it as charity or pity. He wanted to show her that he treasured this ranch, respected her determination to preserve her family's memory, and, above all else, valued her as a person. Lily, though still somewhat distant and guarded, silently observed David's every move. She realized that beneath his reserved demeanor lay a man of compassion, diligence, and a willingness to do anything to assist her. Gradually, her resentment began to subside. She recalled the moments they spent walking through the fields, the times he asked about her past, and the evenings under the old oak tree where he listened to her most profound worries about saving the ranch from endless debt. She also understood that if David truly intended to atone merely with money, he could have directly offered to pay off all her debts or even purchase the ranch outright. But he did not do that. He chose to devote himself, to labor alongside her, share every hardship, and, most importantly, respect her independent spirit. Occasionally, she would see him utterly fatigued from the grueling tasks, and a warmth she had never before experienced would well up in her heart. One late afternoon, after finishing their work, they sat beneath the old oak tree David often visited whenever he needed time to think. The sun gradually sank behind the distant hills, painting the sky pink with twilight. Lily quietly gazed at the sunset, her emotions stirring as she thought of her parents. David sat beside her, speaking slowly. "I know what my family did, though indirectly, caused you pain and loss. If I could go back, I wish things had been different, but time can't be reversed, so now I can only give my all to help you." Lily listened, sensing the sincerity in his voice. She closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the fresh air before turning to David. "I used to think life would always be dark, but you helped me see a light in my darkest days." David gently took Lily's hand. The warmth from his fingers made her heart pound. "I couldn't do anything while you were suffering alone, but now I want to prove that my feelings for you are real. I want you to know I didn't come here out of guilt or for money." His words, like an invisible thread binding them, moved Lily to tears. She remembered the day she first found David battered and exhausted, and here he was now, his hands calloused from hard work, his eyes bright yet carrying scars of his own. She realized that all he'd done wasn't to buy or manipulate her, but to earnestly help and gradually grow to love her and this ranch. "I understand," Lily answered softly, brushing away a tear. "Thank you." From that moment onward, Lily and David joined forces to rebuild the ranch with clear purpose. They assessed available resources, outstanding debt, and drew up a list of priorities to repay what was owed while improving the facilities. Thanks to David's discreet support, some loans were extended, and certain interest payments were eased, gradually lightening Lily's burden. She still had no idea that most of these concessions stemmed from his intervention, nor did she want to ask too many questions. Perhaps in some small way, she was ready to open her heart and trust him. But reviving the ranch wasn't just about money. They had to toil nonstop. Each dawn, David rose with Lily before daybreak to care for the horses, checking each one's health to ensure they had enough feed and water. By midday, under the scorching sun, they took advantage of any free moment to repair the stable's roof or replace outdated equipment. Toward evening, they walked through the fields together, debating whether to sow more grass or look for better feed sources for the horses. David's presence in their daily tasks made Lily feel less alone. Though remnants of distance lingered due to the complicated past, step by step they learned to rebuild and fix what was broken. Whenever Lily felt overwhelmed by tangled finances, David quietly came over to help her check their expenses, or simply smile, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder to let her know she wasn't alone. Part 5. A happy ending. Over the course of many months, the ranch gradually began to recover. Debts were repaid bit by bit, the horses grew healthy and multiplied, and the grass in the fields flourished thanks to careful care. Lily no longer had to spend sleepless nights worrying, although challenges remained. Yet she could sense a change. Sometimes she stood on the porch watching David mend the fences, and she couldn't help smiling to herself. From a mere stranger, he had become an indispensable part of this place. One day as the sun went down, casting a red-orange glow across the fields, David and Lily led the horses back to the stable. They sat resting under a large tree, still breathing heavily from the day's work, but feeling lighthearted. Lily gently leaned her head against David's shoulder, aware of his heart beating strongly. He put his arm around her, his warm voice resonating. "We've come a long way, haven't we?" Lily nodded, remaining silent for a moment before saying, "I used to think life was always dark, but you helped me realize there's still hope, as long as we have courage and someone to walk with us. No matter how painful the past may be, love and forgiveness can soothe all wounds." David smiled, giving Lily's hand a gentle squeeze. He recalled those early days when he arrived here, running from a vast fortune and heavy pressures, hoping to flee from the world. Now he had found a reason to stay, a reason more beautiful than any real estate project he'd ever pursued. "Thank you for giving me a chance to prove that I'm not just someone who caused you debts," he said softly, his voice trembling. "And thank you for forgiving me, even though I'm not sure I deserve it." Lily shook her head, looking at him tenderly. "Love isn't about being deserving or not. It's a choice. I choose to trust you, to believe in the good things you've done and are doing." David suddenly took her hand, his warmth surprising Lily. She looked at him, eyes waiting for something out of the ordinary. In the twilight, David's face was more serious than ever, and he took a deep breath to calm himself. From his pocket, David took out a small box, inside which lay a simply designed yet elegant ring. "Will you marry me?" he asked, sincerity shining in his eyes, brimming with boundless hope. Lily didn't need long to think. Tears shimmered at the corners of her eyes as she gave a slight nod. "I will," she whispered, her voice choking up. She placed her hand on the ring, allowing David to gently slip it onto her finger. They embraced, and in that moment, every storm in their lives seemed to fade into the distance, yielding to the gentle dusk and a bright future ahead. The wedding day for Lily and David wasn't held in a five-star hotel, nor was it loud or bustling. Instead, they chose a small ceremony right at the horse ranch, a place that had witnessed so many emotions and memories between them. A few bouquets of wildflowers, meticulously arranged by Lily, adorned the porch, and ribbons of white and green lined the stable fence. A small, lovely banquet table was set with dishes prepared by friends and neighbors who helped out. No high society guests appeared in extravagant dresses. Rather, there were neighbors from the village who'd known Lily since she was young and deeply sympathized with her situation, along with a few of David's old friends, those who truly understood his journey to find himself. Everyone rejoiced to bless the happy couple. When Lily emerged in a simple white wedding dress, a radiant smile on her face, David stood waiting in the ranch yard. The neighing of horses rose like a congratulatory fanfare. Under the old oak tree, where they once confided in each other, the officiant witnessed their vows. They promised each other to preserve the ranch and to face all future challenges together. There was no orchestra, only a small speaker playing a soft melody. In each other's arms, Lily and David danced slowly on the grass, while their friends smiled in approval. The late-day sun cast its gentle glow, bathing the ranch in a scene of peaceful romance. The wedding of Lily and David brought an end to a stormy journey, but opened a new, brighter chapter for them both. They stood side by side, hands clasped, eyes on the future. A future where they not only preserved the beloved horse ranch, but also discovered true love amid every trial and tribulation. And they knew that, as long as there was faith, love, and forgiveness, all difficulties would become motivation for them to build a happy life together. Thank you for listening to this story. Don't forget to leave your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to our channel.